right, this is very cool for me because, as I was telling Mattia before, I spend most of my day talking about stocks and bonds and private credit, and I care much more about cars and racing. If you've seen my show, you know that's the case. Mattia, also, I was lucky enough as a kid to go and do a lot of my education in Germany. I think, grew up in Switzerland, and then before you went to Bologna and then got involved with Ferrari. I started watching F1 right when you started your first job, I think, for Ferrari, right in the early 90s. And to me, those were the glory days. You had, obviously, Schumacher versus Häkkinen. You had Senna versus Prost. How would you describe the arc that you've gone through in your career and also that the league has gone through from those days, the glorious V12s and V10s to today's 50-50 energy harvesting?
So hi everyone. First, I'm pleased to be here. I think it's a great opportunity. As you said, I grew up in Switzerland. I've been made my university in Switzerland. And then I moved to Italy because I got a great opportunity to join Ferrari as a team, F1 team. I started as a graduate, engine engineer, and most of my career has been in Ferrari. I stayed there for 30 years, from graduate by becoming managing director or team principal of the Scuderia Ferrari, and I left by 2022. So, as I said, almost 30 years there. And I've been very lucky because when I joined, the year after Michael Schumacher joined, Jean Todt was the team principal at the time. And these have been incredible years, not only because of the success, which came later. So the first championship was in 99 and then 2000, but because it has been the years where Ferrari has really created the foundations for a winning team and the future success. It has been the years where the team has been built from the skills, people, organizations, methodologies. And it has been, for me, a great school at the time. So when I joined, or at least when we won in 99 with a constructor title, it was 21 years that Ferrari was not winning a title. In the following years, and with Michael, we won in total 16 titles between drivers and constructors. So it has been an incredible period. As I said, I've been lucky to be part of that era, because success is when you achieve it through big efforts. It's somehow incredible. Now, to the second part of the question is how different it was and what has been the journey with F1. So F1 was very different at the time. So still it's about racing, car racing, drivers on track.
It was also difficult, I imagine.
It was also difficult, yeah. But it was about fuel and lubes. It was really a sporting and technical challenge. Today it has turned to be more and more an entertainment. It's more fun for the persons and the fans watching the F1. It's, and you can see the business had grown up incredibly. At the time when we were winning with Ferrari, as I said, it was total 600 people in a team like Ferrari. Today it's more than 1,500 people, so more than double. The budget maybe 200 million per season. Today is over more than 500 million per season. So it's the complexity of the product, the number of races, the business in itself, fan engagement, media. It's a different world. So, and the complexity in itself as well, managing those teams today certainly has increased. But myself, as I said, being very lucky to be part of that journey at the time. Success, but not only, as I said, it has been for me a school. And which today, again, by leading the Audi F1 project, certainly I've got benefits from it.
So what is it like to go from, a team that already was world famous in racing? I mean, clearly it doesn't get any bigger than Ferrari and Jean Todt, to building a team almost from scratch. I mean, I know that the Audi team is a new entrant, but you bought a team that already existed, but you're still having to go out there and find the Mattia Binottos of today, right, to hire. And there must be, because the budgets have more than doubled, a massive talent war, right? Also, the organization is just so much bigger and more complex, even before you get to talking about the cars. What is it like to build that kind of organization from scratch?
It's it's our biggest challenge today, no? To become a winning team. Audi has participated to most of the motorsports series by winning. The most famous is Le Mans Endurance, Dakar, Rally, introducing at the time the Audi Quattro, and for the very first time the four-wheel drives in a motorsport and in a racing environment. So Audi is used to win in the motorsports, but F1 is the pinnacle of the motorsports. It's a different league. The cars are different animals, and the complexity are certainly a lot higher. And as well, if you look, what are the competitors? Monsters. Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, all established organizations in F1, no? With all the proper assets, infrastructures, organizations. So the challenge now is the most difficult for Audi. And we want to win. We want to again showing that Audi is Vorsprung, by the way. It's innovation. And we want to come, join, and win in our way. Now, as you said, the challenge is to transform what was a former private small team in a winning team. And sometimes it's even more difficult than starting from scratch, because then you are a small team with the wrong culture, the wrong mindset. They were simply used to participate, not to spend money, to count money. But now is the time that we have to become the best in class in that series, in that world. So we need to invest on our future. We need to invest on the talents, as you said. Ferrari did it at the time when I joined myself. Ferrari in 1995 invested in 15 new young engineers. I was one of those. And we are exactly doing the same. So now we are investing on very young graduates for the future. It's an investment on the future because we believe that will be for us a key pillar of our success. And we are investing on diversity. Because if at the time the young people were certainly an important factor for the success, I believe that today diversity as well. And what's diversity, we can stay here discussing for a while, but diversity in thinking, it's diversity in innovation, it's really different nationality, different genders, whatever you can, because the sport has become so complex and the decision-making process is so important that young talents, skills, and diversity for me are the pillars of the future. So we are hiring, as you said, as much as we can. Why as much as we can? Because there is a budget cap in F1. So you are capped in terms of money that you can spend through the season, and salaries are part of the cap. So you need to balance between car development, pure techniques, investments, general services, but salaries as well. No? So that's why I think that's the balance we need. But investing on, as I said, young graduates, young people is where we are trying to do, to create our foundation.
By the way, two questions out of that. One is, as you said, you're from Switzerland. Did you go, you went and studied in Bologna after that, right? Or just moved down to Italy? Because I'm wondering what universities you tap to get your talent. And a related question is, if you're tapping people from Switzerland and your headquarters are there, doesn't that put you at a disadvantage for the price cap, since other teams are in far less expensive locations?
So our location is expensive. I grew up and I studied myself in Switzerland, by the way, but we are hiring people not only from Switzerland, we are hiring people from around the world, looking at the best in class. We have created our own engineering academy in our team, Audi F1 Team, where we are going through an important, let me say, assessment when recruiting those candidates. The last year has been the very first edition of our engineering academy, more than 6,000 applications for 6 engineers at the end. So it has been a big assessment. But yes, living in Switzerland is costly. The salaries in Switzerland are higher than the other teams, maybe in UK and Italy. But the current financial regulation in F1 are considering that difference. So we've got an allowance for the delta cost of the living in Switzerland. So that's why that is somehow balanced the extra, let me say, cost of life in Switzerland. But investing on young is bringing new energy, creativity, skills, talent, but as well it's a strategic approach to the salary level as well.
Does it make, I was inspired by the Quattro success. When I bought my first car, when I got my first job, I was living in Frankfurt, and I picked an Audi A4 Avant with the 2.5-liter TDI and a stick shift. It was a great vehicle. Vorsprung durch Technik convinced me. Is it a different feeling to work for a team that makes cars people can actually buy? Because Ferraris, I mean, unless you live in Miami, you can't afford a Ferrari, right? You guys, I'm sure, have all got Ferraris, but most people can't. And so it's so cool that you can work for a team now that the fans can actually drive the product.
You know, after 28 years in Ferrari, I'm Italian. I grew up in Switzerland, but I'm Italian. Certainly Ferrari for me was my passion. I was a Ferrari fan. And when joining Ferrari for me was the best I could do, a dream. So when I left Ferrari, what should I do, really? Should I still continue working in F1? Should I move to another team? Mercedes was my competitor, McLaren. I would never do it. And Audi came. Oh, true. And finally, Audi joined F1. And first, as you said, for what the brands represent. Now it's a big brand in motorsports. Second, I think is the most exciting challenge today in F1. Starting almost from scratch. Not only the chassis, but as well the power unit, with a clear commitment from the full Audi board and the full, I would say, corporate in there in Ingolstadt. It's a big project, it's the most exciting, and it's Audi, where, as you said, most of the people may buy an Audi. So by transforming that journey in a success and a successful team, I think that will be my best project in the life. So after Ferrari, honestly, that has been the only one which I have, as a matter of fact, considered. And as you said, it's for everyone. No? It's everyone can reflect into the Audi project and in our team.
What do you think of the new formula, the new regulations? You described it as, an engineering project that's turned into like an entertainment product. I always think of it as a limit driving sport that has gone to become a resource management sport. I don't know how many times I hear the announcers say energy harvesting, and as a fan, not totally in love with it, I'll be honest with you. Although I think the races have gotten better and better. China was much better than Melbourne, and Japan, for a viewer, was way more interesting than those two. And there are going to be some changes here. So what do you think about that? Having, been around when the driver mattered most, and now it's like how much battery you've got.
As first, what's the DNA of F1? It's entertainment, it's sports, but it's a technical challenge. And F1 wanna be it's a platform of innovation. It's a platform for innovation for manufacturers. It's a platform for innovations in general. We are at the edge of the technology. So reviewing the previous regulation was necessary as well. When we introduced the previous one in 2014 with the electrification of the power unit, already it has been a big step forward with the highest efficient engine in the world somehow in F1, maybe even not properly promoted, but it was the most efficient engines we had. And now is the next step forward, and I think as F1 we have to do it. Now, I know that when you start introducing a new regulation, you may have things that are not perfect at the start, that need to be improved. That's everything you do when it's new improvements are required. But the overall format is still a great format. As you said, watching races that are overtaking. We should not forget that at the early 2000s, the races were boring with no overtaking. And here maybe there are nostalgic saying that before it was better. But before, people were even vocally saying, it's not great, no overtaking, it's boring. Now we've got a great show. And I think the show is great, by the way. As you said, overtaking, racers, drivers fighting on track. It needs to be fine-tuned. Yes, it needs to be fine-tuned, but that's fine-tuning that we are going through. But I think, as I said, it's a great platform. Energy is part of the automotive today. So and I think it's how the drivers have been very vocal that it was not so great. So the fans are catching it up. Media are telling it. But once we have fine-tuned and no one will discuss it anymore, you simply focus on the show, entertainment, and the overtakings you got on track. And I think it's a big show.
how are your drivers? I mean, you have in Nico Hülkenberg a driver who has experience in not only this league, but also, with the previous driving style. And then Gabriel Bortoleto, a young star. Do the younger guys pick this up faster? I mean, I see like Kimi is doing great, right? And Max is not. So is that about the changes, or?
Max is not, because he's not the fastest today on track, so he will complain. But I think that, you said it right, we've got two drivers ourselves. Nico, almost 40, not so young anymore. Gabi,
40
31.
is still young. I feel like 40 is still pretty young.
For a driver, how old are you? But, so obviously we've got 21 and 40. But both of them are picking it up. Okay, Nico is very happy with the car's handling. He's enjoying that format. Yes, fine-tuning again, but generally speaking, he's enjoying as much as Gabi. I think at the end, it's we just need to get used to a different format to before. And that's everyone. It's always true when you go through a change of a transformation. So we need to get used to it. But again, 3 races only, and the show was there already. So we should be positive.
What do you think about the new entrants? My partner Hannah was always telling me, like, wow, there's so many new teams coming to F1, and it took me a while to sort of clock it, but now you have Audi coming in, you have Cadillac coming in, you have Ford coming in. Like, it's a whole new paddock, really, and good for you, because you wouldn't want to go to Mercedes and McLaren. What does it mean to you to have more teams?
It's great, and it's showing again how the platform is attractive, no, to manufacturers and automotive. It's creating a great business at the end for fans, for automotive, for manufacturers, for everyone. And the fact that Audi has been attractive as much as Cadillac or Ford are important signals. So, and the fact that we are here today, by the way. So at the end, I think it's great to see that business, which is a sport we should never forget, is so attractive to everyone, because for us that we are working there at the end, it's make our days even better, funny.
But by the way, what is it like for you as an engineer, a trained engineer, to deal with so much business stuff? Like, I was listening to Mario Carbone yesterday on stage, and I'm thinking, this guy is a chef, like he's a cook at heart, and he's talking about buying and building hotels, right? So it's a totally different skill set. And for you, it's the same jump, right? From designing an engine to convincing a sponsor to pay you money.
I think it's very similar. I was a poor engineer selling smokes. I'm still selling smokes in my business. It's about telling the right story. It's about convincing people. It's about motivating people. And I think you can do that from an engineer or, let me say, more a manager's side. But at the end, it's a team effort. It's not individuals. I'm part of the team as much as all the other individuals. We've got different roles, but I think we are all together. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. Simply stick to the objective and do it together.
I mean, I don't think many people could do it. So you could give yourself a pat on the back for that, because it's difficult to wear both hats successfully. So I'm very excited for this race. There have been some slight changes to the regulations. It's pretty technical stuff, but how would you explain the changes that we've seen, and how do you think it's going to affect your drivers?
I think, as we said before, it's fine-tuning, ongoing. I'm sure it's not the last one we will have. So based on the first initial 3 races, we have decided what could be improved in the short term, which is somehow reducing, as we said, the energy management by reducing the harvesting opportunities. It's reducing maybe the boost in overtaking to create less unsafe situations. But when we come to technicalities, it's a lot of details, which I don't think that the fan will recognize from outside. Maybe more the drivers being less affected by some strange behaviors or strange energy management situations.
No more super clipping.
No more, a lot reduced super clipping. So less, let me say, comments on it, which will help for the sport. But it's not big changes. It's really fine-tuning again.
How do you think you're going to do in Miami? And how important is this, U.S. exposure? Because now you have Miami, Las Vegas, Austin, It's huge.
It's huge for us. It's huge as well for our market here in the USA, so it's important one. But we should not forget, Audi has joined with a clear ambition is to win, or aiming to win by 2030. As to create solid foundations, it takes time. Hiring people, creating the infrastructures. So that's our very first year. We are building and growing and learning. So my expectations need to be managed. So if you look at the start of our season, it has been okay. Fighting the midfield, scoring points in Australia. Big competitors are doing worse than us, so making it wrong in F1 is easy. So I think that by having started in the right position, no fundamentals problems with the car is great for us, but it's not the year we are aiming to win, not yet. That will take time. So, but scoring point and trying to do well is important to us. And again, being here in Miami after the first 3 races, again, to show the potential of our car, we have always been fighting for points at the end in the race, being in the midfield, but with a great pace. Again, to continue showing that even through the season, when everyone is bringing developments and we are bringing developments, we can keep that level of competition. That's very important to us for the credibility of our project, because from here onward, we always need to improve ourselves. We've got an objective to win, so we need to progress. But it's in F1, patience is required as well. It takes time. It's sometimes changes take a while. If you are hiring people, they need first to realize where they're living, where they're working, the environment. If you are building infrastructures, it may take years. So for us, being here in Miami, Austin, Las Vegas, as you said, is important, certainly, because finally we are here as Audi. But we need as well to look ahead, making sure that we are not distracted by our long-term focus, which is 2030.
Mattia, thank you so much for spending the time. We really appreciate it. Mattia Binotto.